holiday season, treat yourself. Treat yourself to candy. Celebrate the holiday season with the Holiday Crush. They've sprinkled candy with a holiday theme and fun-packed challenges every week for 5 whole weeks, finishing on January 4th. The more challenges you complete, the better your chances of unwrapping delicious rewards. So, are you ready to crush the holidays? Play the Holiday Crush now. Download it from the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store for free. Terms and conditions apply.
From NJ.com, this is Talk is Cheap, a New York Giants podcast. We're talking Big Blue football all year round.
What's going on, everybody? Zack Rosenblatt back here with Darryl Slater for the latest episode of the Talk is Cheap podcast. The Giants are coming off a pretty brutal loss, 20-6 to the Cleveland Browns. Their playoff hopes are slipping away, but they still are there because they're in the NFC East. So at 5-9, they're still very much in it. Though that can change this week if Washington beats Carolina, which is very possible, and the Giants lose to the Ravens, which is also very possible, and their playoff hopes will be over. Darryl, how did you come out of that Browns game thinking any differently than you did coming out of the Cardinals game?
No, I mean, obviously, they go into the Browns game against a team that's really good, and Giants were really shorthanded. The odds were against them, and sure enough, they didn't even come close to winning, and now they are in serious trouble in terms of winning this division, and which is, probably what we all expected. They're 5-9. I think if you said at the beginning of the year, will they, maybe they win 5-6 games, I think 7 would have been something that people would have really celebrated. Maybe some people are going to celebrate 6, but yeah, they're about maybe right where we probably thought they would be. They just took kind of a weird roundabout way to get there, and they wound up in contention in their division because their division's terrible. So that's sort of the long and the short of it for the Giants this year. And I mean, it's going to take a lot for them to win the division. So I know the math is not difficult, but the reality of it is it just seems unlikely. But then again, Washington has their own issues going into this.
Yep.
Its own issues, I guess, going into this game in Carolina. So maybe it's not a shoo-in win for Washington.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's funny, like the journey to this point maybe is not what we expected, but like the destination is what we expected. Because if you go back and look at, I think we both did like schedule prediction posts or whatever. I think I probably had them at 6-10, or I think I had them at 6-10, and I think you probably did 5 or 6 wins as well, right?
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember.
So off the top of your head, but I mean, if you just looked at the schedule, it kind of played out that way, and
just how they got there: 0-5, 1-7, 4 straight wins, some hope at 5-7, 2 straight losses. What a weird, you figure 1-7, then you're going into the toilet there, and probably going to be a 3-win season or a 4-win season. But they managed to salvage something out of it, and they lose this game maybe, which they probably will. They beat the Cowboys 6-10, some hope for the future, and then a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah, and I guess we can get right into it. So I think one of the big topics, I know the big topic coming into the year was, will Daniel Jones take the next step? Is he their guy? And as you and I have talked about, I don't think he's necessarily done anything, both either in his production or his performance or his health, to like say that you should definitively say that he's their guy going into next year. But their Joe Judge was on Wednesday at his press conference. He didn't like directly say he's our guy in 2021, but he was asked, like, because John Harbaugh earlier in the day had talked about how the aha moment where he knew Lamar Jackson was his quarterback came pretty early on. It was like the second game or something like that. And so someone asked Joe Judge, and he's like, I don't know if there was a aha moment, but then he started going into all the details of why he likes Daniel Jones, competitive leader. He's handled everything that we've thrown at him, blah, 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 a lot of coach speak. And then he was directly asked, like, if you can even think for a second about 2021, is Daniel Jones your quarterback in 2021? And Joe Judge said Daniel Jones is my quarterback, or our quarterback. So he very easily could have been like, I don't want to talk about next year, which he normally does. And it's vague enough that you could interpret it how you want, I guess. But the reaction seems to, be that he's committed to Daniel Jones as his quarterback next year. And I mean, I think ultimately it's probably going to come down to Joe Judge liking him or not if he comes back next year, right? Because whether Dave Gettleman is here or not, if Joe Judge seems to have enough sway at this point that if he was like, I want to draft the BYU kid or whatever. Like I think they would do it for him.
Yeah, maybe. I think so. I think so, and I think he's probably not seen enough of Daniel Jones to know. You got to remember too, Joe Judge. I think he got a 6-year contract too, so it's not like he has to worry about being 2 and done. He can kind of take next year and have one more year to evaluate Daniel Jones, and next year is the big year for this kid, and the prove it year for year 3, like it was for Sam Darnold. Didn't work out for Darnold this year. The Jets are probably moving on, and that could be the case after next year with the Giants, but. I think to make a decision right now on whether Jones is the guy, it's probably premature. The jury's way out. I think it's more likely that he's not, I think, based on what he's shown. But I suppose there's a chance he could salvage this next year and potentially with a third offensive coordinator, which we've talked about. But that was interesting to hear from Joe Judge. I don't know if it was altogether surprising considering how many positive things he said about Jones throughout the year. He really doesn't publicly criticize players too often, but he's been especially glowing talking about Jones. I would say, just having listened to him, especially about his toughness, blah blah blah, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
he really has not criticized him too much. So I wasn't entirely surprised by it, but like you said, he could have been typically evasive. I think he probably realized if he was evasive, that's a bigger
Probably worse. Yeah.
that's a bigger headline than if he just says this is our guy.
Well, I think he saw what happened in back in April or February or whatever when he refused to say his name and how everybody in New York, I think, understandably ran with it. And it was like, okay, does that mean he doesn't like him?
Yeah. I mean, like he was just.
I think he learned his lesson on that a little
right,
bit.
and he was just being so absurdly procedural and robotic with his approach there. But in this case, I think it's if they do fire Dave Gettleman and then he sits down with a new GM and they decide they want to go with another quarterback, he has an out because of he didn't really say Jones is our guy for 2021 necessarily, and also like. This is not like a legally binding statement. Like he can.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it happens all the time. I think the Cardinals said that Josh Rosen was their guy. So
right, and no one remembers that, right? So
you forget about it once the next quarterback comes.
He's not going to get arrested if they draft a quarterback. Like,
it's not a crime now. It's not like it's not like court where like you can't lie under oath.
He just said BS to the media. His coaches do it all the time. It's like they spew, spew and spin, and that they spew and spin all the time to us. Like so.
I mean, shoot. Dave Gettleman was like, no, we wouldn't trade Odell Beckham. We didn't sign him to trade him.
They traded him. Like so.
Although it's a little different because everybody still talks about that he said that now, so it's a little different than your point.
But. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, a lot of these guys, like, some guys I suppose care, but I mean, if you're a coach, your job is to win games or whatever. Joe Judge, it's not to like, be prophetic in the media, whatever. I mean, like, I don't think he gives a crap, quite frankly, what he says to us. And so, but yeah, like, I think ultimately, like, what is going to happen, if you just read between the words, because a lot of times the words are fairly meaningless, which we were just saying there, is he'll get another year. I don't think they're drafting a quarterback, period, at all. And I know we talked about this a little bit off the air, but, like, I don't think it's a sure thing that they should draft a quarterback at all, let alone high, and they're going to have a high pick, presumably. So I guess you can make a case for it, but I don't think it's happening. I don't think they're drafting a quarterback. I don't think they're drafting a quarterback anywhere. I mean, they have so few picks and so many roster holes.
So I think there are two sides to this. On that end, I think, you should always be open to, like, getting a better quarterback, I would say. I think the best organizations are, okay, we need to decide, is the guy that we have, are we positive that he's going to be like a potential star player over the next however many years? Or if there's a guy we have on the board with us right now that we are convinced is going to be the guy wherever he is, like the Kyler Murray, Josh Rosen thing. Like, if Kyler Murray's not the guy in that draft, maybe they don't pick a quarterback and they still are trying it out with Rosen, who maybe, he just got picked up by the 49ers randomly.
But I mean, they had the number 1 pick,
but
right?
yeah, I mean, the point being, the
number 1 pick.
Like, if the guy isn't on the board and you're obsessed with him, then you kind of get him and then you figure it out. But the other side of that is, and this kind of goes back to the Sam Darnold thing, regardless of what you think about Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones, I think anyone can admit that their GMs and their front offices have not surrounded them with the right talent to where you can, like, fully evaluate them, regardless of, like, you could say, I don't think Daniel Jones is ever going to be good, and that's fine, but he also hasn't been surrounded. It hasn't been put in position to see, just like I don't think Sam Darnold definitely ever was. And so you're kind of 3 years into Sam Darnold, and you kind of have to decide now if you want to keep him or not, because you can't really wait any longer, especially if they're going to have the number 2 overall pick. So I think that's kind of the next part of the discussion. Like, if Daniel Jones is the guy, they need to go out and prove that they believe that, and they need to surround him with the support. They need to get him a number 1 receiver and other weapons. Like, don't stop at one receiver. Be like the Chiefs and just add speed everywhere. Like, just get a bunch of weapons for him. Sterling Shepard and Slayton are fine players, but they should be 2 of a piece of a lot of players. And Evan Ingram, we'll get into him a little later. He's not a Pro Bowl tight end, even if he's a Pro Bowl tight end right now. He's clearly not reliable if you just look at the numbers and the eye test. And the offensive line, like, they need to be sure they find the best 5 guys out there. It seems like they've already kind of moved on from Will Hernandez because they keep playing Shane. Maybe they're just trying to see what Shane Lemieux is as a rookie down the stretch. But based on the grading, he's been maybe the worst pass blocking guard of the NFL. He had a 0 grade last week, which I didn't know was possible. Nick Gates has been up and down. I think they like what they see there, but you need to decide if he's like the guy you want to be your center long term. Andrew Thomas has been up and down. You need to decide if what you have with Matt Purd is good enough. So you need to, number 1, improve those weapons. You need to, number 2, decide if you have the 5 best offensive linemen to protect him, which based on their performance at whatever the combination is, it's probably not the right one. And then you need to figure out the right offensive coordinator / play caller. You need to have a guy who's willing to adjust the offense to Jones' skill set as opposed to trying to fit Jones into your offense, which is what I think Jason Garrett did based on the fact that they don't throw the ball down the field at all. And Daniel Jones on Pro Football Focus has the best passer rating of any quarterback on passes 20 yards or more, but he only throws it 8% of the time 20 yards or more, which is like 5th worst, which kind of just shows you the problem here. And I think part of the discussion is always like, well, you don't want to have a third offensive coordinator in 3 years. I think the way you can avoid that is by just promoting Freddie Kitchens if you think he's good enough, because then in theory it's a guy that's already in the building. He knows how Daniel Jones thinks. They've had a relationship already. So if they replace Jason Garrett, the best path is probably Freddie Kitchens, but I still think they should be open to like bringing in a smart mind if there's someone out there. Like, what do you think about all
Definitely.
that, right?
I think they definitely should be open to that. I mean, we were just talking last week about Freddie Kitchens' like unimpressive track record in Cleveland last year, and I know he didn't have a lot to work with in that game on Sunday night, but it's not like he did anything particularly impressive there. I know it's one game with Colt McCoy, so you can't read too much into that, but I think they should definitely be open to adding some kind of young, up-and-coming mind. Not that Freddie Kitchens is old, but in terms of an outside presence, and yeah, it would be another new offense for Daniel Jones. I don't know how, presumably you'd think it would hope it would be a different offense, because what they're doing right now is
not good. Yeah,
not working. You mentioned they're not playing to his strengths, obviously throwing the ball down the field. So I think some of that ties into when the line gives him protection, he's able to do it, but when they don't, he's not, if that makes sense, right? So it's chicken and egg type stuff. Why doesn't he throw the ball down the field so much? Well, some of it's how much they're calling it, but you think if you put yourself in Jason Garrett's head, just playing devil's advocate is like, okay, the line is so terrible. Well, we can't do that too often. So, look, I think that the talent is an issue on offense. They do have to surround him with pieces. It's probably easier said than done. It's definitely easier said than done because they're middle of the pack in cap space, and they don't have a great amount of draft capital. I mean, I think they're 10th in those Tankathon draft power rankings, which will obviously change because the draft position changes. But they only have we've said it before, 6 picks, I think, because they picked up the extra one in the Marcus Golden trade, late round pick. So what are you gonna, you're gonna get a bunch of speed receivers. I get it, but you get a guy in the 5th round, he may or may not be ready. He may or may not be capable. But I think overall, what your point's a good one in that they need to, and we did a whole story on this earlier in the year, and we talked to, I forget the guy who said it, maybe Mark Schlereth, or Jeff Schwartz or somebody was talking about how you look at what other teams do, like the Niners, for instance, or the Chiefs, and they get guys who maybe aren't like complete receivers, but just have like game-breaking speed, who can really take the top off a defense, and then you just figure out how to use them. They don't have to be a pure complete receiver, but you can't teach that type of speed, right? So the Giants don't have that right now. They really don't. And so that's what they need to get. They need to get someone who can take the top off a defense, and I guess Darius Slayton can kind of be that guy, but they're going to have to be smart, whoever the GM is, of how they spend their money in terms of giving Daniel Jones help and how they use their draft picks, because they don't have an infinity amount of both, and not, they don't have a large amount of draft capital or cap space to use. So those are mitigating factors, and those are definitely, if they fire their GM, definitely mitigating factors in terms of the GM search and how appealing this job will be. And I have a thing coming out later this week on that, comparing all the GM openings with about as as quasi-scientific as we can get with some rankings. So yeah. It's a tough spot, regardless of who the GM is. It's not the toughest spot in the league in terms of getting this thing fixed, but it's not easy. It's not like they're the Jaguars with a ton of cap space and the number one pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's like with the cap space thing. The interesting thing is, so they don't have a large amount of free agents they have to worry about. But they have 3 in particular that they're only going to be able to keep 1 or 2 of them if they want to add anybody, pretty much. So it's Leonard Williams, Dalvin Tomlinson, and Logan Ryan. They all have like interesting cases as like this should be the guy you keep for various reasons. Whether if it's because of cost, you probably don't want to keep Leonard Williams because he's going to be the most expensive by a long shot out of those 3. But he's also the most talented. I think we would both agree. So if he costs $18 million a year, maybe you can get the cap hit down in the first year, so it's less. But that right there is that's gonna basically hogging up all the cap space you open up by cutting like Golden Tate and a few of those veteran guys. So that gets drained right there. Then you need to decide you want to bring Logan Ryan, who bring back Logan Ryan, who's been crucial to the leadership of this locker room. But you also did just draft Xavier McKinney. Then there's Dalvin Tomlinson. Do you really want to invest that much into 2 guys who primarily their strength lies in run stopping on the defensive line?
Probably right. And how much you want to spend on Logan Ryan if he's not going to be a starter type player and he's going to have interest elsewhere, going to drive up his price, blah, blah, blah.
So you really have to balance that with so if you let those guys go, the reality is you're getting worse at maybe 2 positions.
Yeah.
But you also are turning around and you either spend that money on a wide receiver, and it's a very deep free agency class. I was looking at recent years, there's never been a wide receiver class like this. There's usually like one guy that you're like, okay, that guy is a number 1 receiver. Usually it's receivers that get overpaid into being number 1s, like a Golden Tate or Tyrell Williams from 2019. I forget, I had the list, but like it's like shocking how receivers don't really hit free agency a lot, it seems like. And this year, you have Kenny Golladay. I mean, I guess in theory they won't all hit free agency, but Kenny Golladay, Allen Robinson, Will Fuller, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chris Godwin, Corey Davis, and then like the next tier guys of like T.Y. Hilton, Marvin Jones, AJ Green. Like there's like so many options that the Giants have no excuse. Whether you go for one of those top end guys or you get one of the lower end and get another business need. And then the other one they need is a pass rusher, I think is the most glaring need maybe they have. And a number 2 corner, maybe. I think you could probably draft that and hope you don't get another DeAndre Baker. But yeah, so they pretty much are going to have to decide, okay, do we want to use our first round pick on a receiver, corner, or an edge rusher? And then do we want to spend all of our money on the one that we don't want to draft in the first round there? And you're going to kind of be able to figure out what their draft plan is based on more than most. I think if there's one positive going into this offseason, if you could say that, I think their needs are so clearly defined that they can just focus on those like 3 or 4 areas and just develop the rest of their roster in theory and maybe supplement it in the draft. I don't think they need to go crazy and sign a bunch of guys at a bunch of positions. They should invest most of their money in those 3 spots I just said. And maybe offensive line.
They can't. I mean, they don't have enough. They got $18 million in cap space, and they can free up some. And maybe we got to go back and revisit those posts that we did.
I guess in theory, you could like extend guys like Blake Martinez and Bradbury and make their cap hit smaller or something like that. Like there's ways of being creative, obviously.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, so they're going to have to thread the needle a little bit. Whoever the GM is, they're going to have to thread this thing and try to make it work. But I mean, the receivers you rattled off there, I think, the one thing that people need to remember, and it almost goes without saying at this point, is some of those guys could be franchise tagged. I think PFF did that thing on Kenny Golladay in particular. They projected the Giants to sign him if he's not franchise tagged, but that's a big if, because that's certainly a possibility with him and some of those other guys you mentioned too. Will Fuller played on the franchise tag this year, maybe though, right? So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong there, but anyway, AJ Green did, I think, but
and that backfired because he's aging.
He's like 1 million years old and he has like 1.5 legs, so I don't think he's the answer.
So Dave Gettleman, sign me up.
Dave Gettleman will give him $16 million a year. So.
Hey, he was good like 4 years ago. All right, let's bring it back to this season. Beyond the Daniel Jones. So by the way, it seems like Jones actually might be on track to return this week if there's no setbacks. He took the first team reps in practice. I mean, it still is 2 injuries. I think the hamstring injury is the one that's healed up more. The ankle injury is more recent, so I think that's the one to keep an eye on. But it seems like he's trending in the direction of playing, which obviously with him coming back and Bradbury coming back, that obviously gives them a better chance of competing than they did the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's Wednesday right now as we're recording this, so tomorrow, Thursday, will be big day for him, Daniel Jones, for the progress with coming back from this thing. But it's possible. When you're limited on Wednesday, that's a good sign.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, so the big news from this week had to do with the Pro Bowl. Usually I don't even like the Pro Bowl stuff is so like over talked about, but this was like such a surprise to me that I feel like we should talk about it a little bit at least. So I think we went into the Pro Bowl selection thing assuming that the Giants would get 2 guys. They got 2 guys. It wasn't the 2 that we expected. James Bradbury made it. That was a lock. I mean, he's been one of the best corners in the NFL. I thought Leonard Williams would make it. He has not made it. But Evan Ingram made it as one of 4 tight ends in the NFL to make the Pro Bowl. For like background on it, I guess the NFC, George Kittle and Zach Ertz both missed most of the season so far. So that kind of eliminated 2 prospects in the NFC. Tight ends have been great. There were still a few that had better numbers than Ingram and deserved more. But I mean, he made his first ever Pro Bowl in a year where he's second among all tight ends in drops. According to Pro Football Focus, quarterbacks have a 60 rating when throwing to him and 5 interceptions on the season when they target him, which is just an insane number. 5. And, he's kind of been the story. We've talked about like how up and down he is. Like the fact that this dude is one of their 2 Pro Bowlers when they have, Logan Ryan, Blake Martinez, Graham Gano, and Leonard Williams, who all have numbers of Pro Bowlers. And they don't make it. I mean, another year when there's actual alternates, they probably would have, but there's no alternates this year because there's no actual game. But like what I know, I broke the news to you. What'd you think when I texted you that I was joking?
Yeah, I was shocked. I mean, I didn't think you were joking. It wouldn't have. It's not even really a funny joke.
It's not.
It's just like
it's a Mike K joke, as they say.
Yeah, I don't even know if he could aspire to such. But hey, gotcha. Okay, great. I'm gonna get on with my night. Thanks. But look, I mean, you talked about the mitigating factors of why he was selected. I mean, the other NFC tight ends were banged up. It's down year for the position in the conference, but still, I mean, come on. Like the guy's had a bad year. He's had an objectively bad year. I think the one thing that you mentioned when we were texting about it that put him over the top probably is he's got some good yardage numbers. And when you look at the Pro Bowl vote, it's 1/3 fans, I think 1/3 players, 1/3 coaches or GMs are somehow involved.
I think it's coaches. Yeah.
Anyway, like I think all of those people have, first of all, like, the fans, for the most part, just look at the numbers, right? And then a big market guy like Evan Ingram probably gets a little boost there. Okay, whatever. Like the coaches and players aren't spending time like taking this very seriously. I wouldn't think they're not going on Pro Football.
Just look at that. Just look at the NFL Top 100 list that comes out every year. Like I've seen players fill that out. They're like, I'll just put like a bunch of guys that I'm cool.
Yeah,
with.
I mean, these guys have like, and who can you blame them? They literally have better things to do. It's like getting called by in the info, pollster or whatever, right? Or someone that do you have time to take the survey after you hang up with your health insurance
or like the Nielsen rating thing or whatever.
Right. I would love to be called by Nielsen. Never been called by Nielsen, but like yeah, so it's something you don't put much time or effort into. You just kind of wing it. And again, these guys have better things to do with their time than spending hours researching Pro Bowl votes. Like who cares?
Yeah, so you click sort by yards. You see Evan Ingram is second among tight ends in the NFC in yards.
30 seconds.
He's second in receptions. All right, let's do it.
Right. Yeah, no one's doing it based on like digging deep into the PFF stuff or whatever. So, and again, you wouldn't necessarily even expect them to because they have so much other more important stuff to focus on. And the Pro Bowl doesn't ultimately mean that much, but unless I guess you have a clause in your contract where you get a bonus for the Pro Bowl.
Logan Ryan missed out on $500,000.
That's right, because he had a very that's a great point. Very incentive laden contract.
And he had been leading in voting up until the very end. And I think there was like a report about like someone from the Giants beat, I think Duggan. He like tweeted some of the like where they finished. And I think Logan Ryan finished second in fan voting at free safety. So he was like right there, and he did like imagine being that close to. I mean, these guys make a lot of money, but I'm just picturing like being that close to making it and not getting it.
Yeah, $500,000. I mean, what does he have? Like a $7 million contract this year. So $500,000 is 1/14 of that. I mean, that's not a small amount, or maybe I did the math wrong, but whatever. So it's still a good amount of money. So yeah, look, Evan Ingram did not deserve to make a Pro Bowl. And I asked you this over a text when we were talking about it. How many guys have straight up made the Pro Bowl? Like not alternate, like been put into the Pro Bowl, like as a first string guy, and then got cut the next offseason. Not traded, cut. Because that's possible for him. If the Giants don't want to pay him his fifth-year option money next year, which is not an enormous figure, but he's not had a good year. And he's obviously, he doesn't seem like, I shouldn't say obviously, sure doesn't seem like a long-term solution for them. So imagine that if he gets cut. I don't know. I think he's sort of salvaged enough that I don't think he will.
I don't think they would cut him. And I'm like they probably can convince themselves with maybe a different offensive coordinator. Yeah, maybe that guy can scheme him up or whatever.
It's not a huge number, right? It's like $8 million or 6.8 or something. Whatever.
I think it's like 6 or something.
6.
Yeah,
it's in the 6s. Yeah, okay. So there you go. But so if you're into the Pro Bowl, which isn't actually happening this year, so
yeah, which is funny because there's a lot of guys there's a lot of, guys like Ingram in their first one, it's not even, they're not even able to go to it.
Well, they were only missing out on a trip to Orlando because they don't even.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah,
sunny Orlando.
They're not in Hawaii anymore. Yeah, that's funny. All right, before we go, we should talk about this game on Sunday a little bit. So the Ravens, I don't have their record in front of me. They are a good team. Obviously, I think they've really picked it up lately. They beat the Browns the week before the Giants lost to them, and they scored like 48 points in that game. Lamar Jackson, I think, has started to play better. He doesn't really pass the ball well. So the Giants, like in terms of their strength against strength, like they're a good run-stopping team. They did a pretty good job against the Browns against the run, but Baker Mayfield just lit them up. I think Baker Mayfield's probably a better pure passer than Lamar Jackson. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, if they can. Even Logan Ryan even said this, which he's always frank with us, which is refreshing because he's pretty much like the Ravens are built to have a lead and they kind of struggle when they have to come back. I don't imagine the Giants offense being very capable of scoring on the Ravens defense, which is kind of part of the problem. But I would say if they can shut down that running game, which is harder with Lamar Jackson factored in, obviously. Like, I don't know. I looking even before the season, this looked like a bad matchup to me. The Giants the Ravens obviously have significantly more talent. I don't really know. I don't really see how the Giants can keep this close unless Daniel Jones, is fully healthy, I guess. But like, how do you feel about this game?
Yeah, I don't see it happening. Even if Daniel Jones plays, I don't see how he's fully healthy. I mean, he's going to have to deal with his ankle injury on top of the hamstring deal. So he missed last week's game, and he was not great the week before in terms of going out there and playing on that thing, and he missed the week before that, right? So he hasn't been right, really since they went to Cincinnati and won that game on what was that? That was the November the 29th. So he gets hurt in the 29th. He misses the next week. Comes back. He's not right the next week. He misses the next week. So you're talking about a month out from the hamstring injury and with an ankle injury in between. And so he hasn't really played. He hasn't played a fully healthy game in the last 3. And so what's his rhythm going to be like and all that with these guys? So I don't see it. I don't see any way the Giants win this game. I really don't. I think their best hope here is to hope that the Washington, the wheels come off and they lose to Carolina, and with the mess that Dwayne Haskins is in. It looks like Alex Smith maybe could play this week though, so there might be a moot point there with Haskins and his nonsense. So even still, like you can't really trust any team in the NFC East to do what they're supposed to do this year, right? So I guess you could see the Giants lose and you could see Washington lose, and then you come down to the last week of the season and the scenarios get a lot simpler than they are right now, because some of these are like pretzel logic scenarios, because every team could still win the division. The Eagles could still win the division. So
I would say whoever wins that Eagles-Cowboys game is going to be in pretty good shape if both Washington and the Giants lose.
Right. That's basically
especially because they both it's all NFC East teams in Week 17. So in theory, if the Cowboys win, then all they have to do is beat the Giants. in the scenario where the Washington and the Eagles, and the Giants both lose, then if the Eagles beat the Cowboys, then all I have to do is go beat Washington. So any of these 4 teams you can make a case for, I think, right now. It's kind of the NFC East in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think it's going to. I think ultimately, I think Washington takes care of business this week, especially if Alex Smith plays, and that should probably put a bow on the Giants season. But it's been such a crazy season that it's really hard to sit here and say like the expected is going to happen. But I think in this case it will, so it probably won't.
Exactly. So what's your prediction for Sunday? What do you got?
Oh man, let me here come up with yours. I like to look at what I actually sent for the.
Since I write our picks post, I wait until the very end to decide.
All right, so you do yours, and you could just say it now.
All right. You know what? I think the Giants can keep it close since they are healthy. I don't see them winning it. So I'll say Ravens 24, Giants 17.
I must have been in a bad mood on Monday when I did these picks.
Well, you also didn't know if Daniel Jones would be healthy or not
on Tuesday, actually, as opposed to every other day when I'm just chipper.
Great point.
I picked Ravens. I picked Ravens 38, Giants 7. Man,
you're feeling real sassy that day, huh?
Feeling charitable. Okay, so Daniel Jones plays. I'll trim it. I'll say Ravens 35 instead of 38, and instead of Giants 7, we'll go Giants 20. How about that? Ravens 35, Giants 20. Giants. I think that's no answer for Lamar Jackson and his running ability.
All right, and it's better than the complete destruction that you originally predicted, I guess. All right,
I guess, but
all right. We can wrap up on that note. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll get you another one. I hope you have a Merry Christmas, and we'll get you this next one before the New Year. It's a holiday season. Hope you have a good one. Make sure you subscribe. Sign up for our text service and leave us some reviews. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Let's be real, dealing with tangled cords can make it harder to do your hair. Break free with the new Unbound Cordless Auto Curler from Conair. Get the curls and waves you want, anytime, anywhere. It's designed to let you experience the power and freedom of beauty in motion. No cords to hold you back. You get your curls and waves your way. Unplug and be unbound. Loose curls, tight curls, beachy waves. The Unbound Cordless Auto Curler makes it easy to get the looks you love. Love your look. Live unbound. Available at Conair.com and search Unbound.